do. Oh, okay. That's good. Okie dokie. Alrighty, let me just pop out chat. Let me just get this going here. Do. And I will fix that. Okay. There we go. Hey, what's up, Pastor? This is just a chill stream. I'm only gonna be streaming for maybe 30, 40 minutes. I think I have to go see Candyman. I have to go see it early today because I'll be going to a wake later. Yeah, so one of my elementary school teachers died of COVID 2 days ago. So I'll be going to her wake tonight. And I might be going to the movies in like 40 minutes or so. I was supposed to be interviewed right now, and I don't know, there's just been a lack of communication, and things have just been very hectic recently. So the interview didn't happen. And yeah, so I'm just decided just to stream for a little bit and see if people wanted to hop in and just talk for a little bit until if anyone had seen any movies. I'll actually, you know what, I'll be in the general voice chat in Discord if people want to come in and talk. Yeah, this is just going to be I'll probably end up privating this stream right after. Yeah, but we did so we recorded a KinoCast for Sallow last night, and I was disappointed that I was the only person who liked the film. I think that people got filtered. I think Sallow's one of those. I think it's one of those movies that, it's a pleb filter. That's all I can say. Hey.
I mean, talking about Sallow, like, everyone, it's really easy to recognize why people don't like Sallow when, like, every review of Free Guy I've seen has been highly positive about such a garbage film.
Yeah, I'm not even bothering to see Free Guy. I think that I have to see. I think I'm gonna be talking about Candyman for Is It Kino?
Wait 1 second.
Which is, I don't know, some horror. I don't really know anything about it. I guess it's a remake or it's a reimagining about police brutality, horror film, something or whatever. I don't know. But I wasn't interested in Free Guy because it looked trash. I saw some article that Free Guy got pushed back to November or October or something, but I guess that was fake news. I guess that was fake news. It was not true. But I did see that. It got pushed, and I don't know what was going on. A lot of the movie releases have been so strange. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really understand, like, these. I guess they probably don't even understand it either. Though I am excited for October 22nd. I think it's October 22nd. The French Dispatch and Dune are going to release on the same day. So on that day, I'll probably do like a double feature in the theaters.
Sorry, I actually had to pop out for a second. I'm back now.
Actually, it's funny that you say that, Dylan. I actually did say that. To be fair, you have to have a very high IQ to understand Sallow. I do think it's a movie that if you're not theologically or philosophically inclined, I think a lot of the film will be, you'll miss out on a lot of the film.
Be over your head.
Yeah, I think you'll just, miss out on a lot of it, because they were like, it sounds like you have more fun analyzing it than watching it. I'm like, but I actually have a lot of fun watching Sallow because I can see what's going on. It's you know what I mean? It's like how I have fun reading philosophy. I have fun reading classic, literature and things like that.
I missed when you said when did people shit on Sallow?
Oh no, on the KinoCast last night.
Oh, the Kinocast, yeah.
Yeah, so it's not released out. What if I'm scatologically inclined? Yeah, and you know what? I got these like edgy people, I guess, commenting on my video like, "Oh, the book was better," and I talk about this on the KinoCast. No, the book was not better. Like, have you tried reading the book? It's just, it's like 100 pages of like, okay, I can kind of see where he's going with this, and then it's completely unfinished, and it's just a list of perverse things. Like, you know, it's hardly a book. It's a list of just edgy sexual, contrivances and things like that. So people who are saying, "Oh, the book was better," they show that they didn't actually read the book, because it's
Saying
hard.
is the film is art.
As
and the
someone
book
who
isn't
reads,
art.
it's not always true that the book is better.
No,
That's
it's
just,
not always true. Like The Shining.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, I think that Stephen King typically, like the thing with Stephen King is that he has some good ideas, but his writing is not that good.
He just shits out books, basically.
Yeah, exactly. So he's bound to have some like interesting ideas, and I think with Stephen King, it's better if it's
Ideas are filtered.
yeah, or you can take that idea and you can make it into something of your own.
He has great sci-fi premises, basically, but you need someone with great execution.
If
Yeah.
you view like the movie thing as like it's just all about the quality of writing in general. Like the book can be written badly, but the movie could have good writing. So it's
Yeah.
like you're kind of just rewriting the whatever it is.
Well, you're taking a good premise and you're refining it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or you're just taking and this is actually the kind of literary adaptation that I like, where they basically just take like one aspect of it, or they just kind of cherry pick, which is what Sallow did with the 120 Days of Sodom, and that's why Sallow in the title comes first, because it's first and foremost not the 120 Days of Sodom. It bears a little bit of resemblance. There's a few things that he takes from it, but the idea of the idea of the four libertines, yes, and the idea of having, these adolescent boys and girls, yes. However, just about everything else is different, and and it's more structured along the lines of Dante's Inferno, and whereas de Sade was sort of working out of the philosophical context of the Enlightenment, Pasolini was writing Sallow through kind of a Nietzschean lens, and so it's not really about the philosophy of the time or the French monarchy, French aristocracy, which is what 120 Days of Sodom was about. This is about fascism, consumerism, and it's working off of like the works of like Simone de Beauvoir, Roland Barthes, Pierre Klosowski, Friedrich Nietzsche, and those thinkers and theorists. So it takes on a whole different philosophical meaning than the original 120 Days of Sodom. And I think that, I like that. I also, Bresson did that a lot too with like Four Nights of a Dreamer. He did that with a lot of his books, where he would be inspired by like one sentence in a book and then essentially just take maybe that very basic idea from the book and then make it into a film all of his own. And I like that because you watch the movie, you get a different experience than when you read the book, and they're two different art pieces. Now, Gustav, you just got filtered. Are you guys still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. I'm just I'm taking this test for.
Oh, okay. I see that
Um,
Yuhan is in here. Yeah, Gustav just got filtered. I wish that I could like, like on Discord where you can, where you can just give people roles. I should just have a role in the server for just called filtered.
Yeah.
Who's a larger
Why not do
influence in filmmaking, Sam Hyde or James Rolfe? I think Sam Hyde actually, like, his editing style is probably very influential as far as, like, meme video making online. Like, that kind of schizophrenic editing
I'd
style.
like to also point out that Sam Hyde actually had a television show.
Yeah.
He had World Peace.
Yeah, he actually was on Adult Swim. But, Kino Corner should make a mud house for 1 million subs. I don't know what that means. A mud house? Okay. You should really give the original Candyman a view. Yeah, I hear it's good. I'm not a huge horror guy. I'm not huge into horror, but I'll watch it. I might watch it tonight. As I said, I have to go to a wake tonight. My 5th grade teacher, Jennifer Adams, she died of COVID this week. Been keeping up with that, and yeah, I guess she had surgery like right before, and then she got it, and yeah, and she was in the ICU for like 3 weeks. Is this your Unabomber cabin? It's kind of all right. So here's what happened. Why I'm in a trailer right now. This isn't my house. This is actually at my work. So we had to get our clinic. As some people know, yeah, our clinic got hit by a tornado. We ended up having to move into a new building, but the building has to be renovated. And so we got an Airstream, and yeah, so we got an Airstream, and the we plugged into the power to like do all our work out of. We plugged it into power, and we found out that we got sold a lemon, and the Airstream caught on fire, and we had to gut the whole thing. So then we were out with like no AC, no nothing, basically. And thankfully, a very rich person actually just donated this trailer to us. So this trailer got donated to us, and thankfully it has air conditioning in it. So yeah, so I kind of set it up as like an office. And we're working out of here now. So yeah, so that's why I'm in a trailer. I'll probably be streaming out of a trailer, I don't know, for the next few weeks, while we're sort of working on renovating the clinic. But yeah, I've been working 5-6 day weeks. It's been kind of crazy. I still have. Wait, what?
Did you ever decide on if you were going to do that film mentorship thing?
I don't think I think I'm gonna pass on it. With all this like COVID lockdown stuff, I don't want to pay $6,000 and then have like international travel restricted, and they might be like, oh, well, you have to quarantine for 2 weeks or something, like that. And I can't take a month off of work. I can't afford it. So I think instead I'm just gonna take that weekend to go to VidCon. But I didn't link my bank account to the GoFundMe or anything, so it's just gonna auto. I just have it set to auto, like give back to any. I didn't want to actually take any money or anything. Like, I was super excited to go. I was very excited to go. And then what happened here, because I work in a clinic, is we had this like Delta variant surge here, and it got really bad. And of course, then I knew some people, who passed away in the last like couple weeks, and seeing how everyone is like, there's all this lockdown talk again and everything like that. It just, I was supposed to go to this same thing at the beginning of the pandemic, and the same thing happened where I got into it, and then the lockdowns happened. They had to cancel, and I'm like, I don't want to have to. I just see it's just history repeating itself in a sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You think you're gonna have another opportunity like this in the future? Or
You know, I don't know.
is this like a once in a lifetime thing?
I don't know if it's necessarily once in a lifetime. You know, I definitely kind of believe in creating my own opportunities. And sorry, got a cold.
Got COVID, you say?
Yeah, I have COVID. No, it's funny. I get a cold and I'll have a cough for like a month after. So the cold will last like 3 days, and then I'll just kind of continually cough for like the rest of the season. No, yeah, so, you know, I don't know, like everything is so up in the air.
Yeah.
I honestly would rather try to make my next feature film. However, I can do that, you know. I don't even know. I mean, I guess yeah, I don't even know. Like, I have to really do a lot of thinking. I've been doing a lot of thinking recently, but not necessarily about my career. I haven't really had time to think about that. I've been just reading, just taking the time that I have just to read some philosophy and theology and try to improve the way that I think. I think that'll, you know, I used to read a lot of it, but I realized that I was consuming a lot of kind of garbage, and it was making me think like garbage. So I have,
Fasting, gluten, taking out gluten, or sugars or carbs.
What
okay,
does that have to do with anything?
all right, I'm gonna mute Vinlove here.
What philosophy and theology have you been reading recently?
Well, I've been reading, so I read a bit, well, I reread the Communist Manifesto, and, yeah, sorry, I'm still not commie.
You haven't read You're not reading Capital by Marx.
I'm not.
That's why you're not.
I'm not reading Capital. No, I was reading some more Nietzsche.
Nietzsche's nice.
I was reading some more Nietzsche. I read a little bit of Hegel. I've been listening to a lot of lectures, like university lectures on. I read a bit of Baudrillard. I was reading. I read Simulation Simulacra. And now I'm reading The Decline of the West by Oswald Spengler, which is a very interesting book.
Have you ever read any Kierkegaard?
Yeah, I read Kierkegaard back when I was a teenager. I have like all of his books. I was thinking of reading The Sickness Unto Death. I have that, and I have Either Or. So I was thinking of getting into those.
Kierkegaard's always fun. Makes you care about things like religion and all that nonsense.
Yeah, and Spengler's really interesting, just as sort of a critique on philosophy in a sense. You know,
When you say critique on philosophy, all I can think of is Heidegger's phenomenology on nothing, in which he just discounts all of logic because it can't describe the nothing properly.
Yeah, well, Spengler has a pretty, also has a pretty base take on philosophy, where he essentially was discounting a lot of the 20th century philosophers for being losers, stating that like other philosophers in the past, like Goethe and Confucius and people like that, were revered in society, and their whole life wasn't just philosophy. They were like statesmen, or they were like, you know what I mean? Like they were somebody other than philosophers. And then he was kind of lamenting the fact that in the 20th century, you then get philosophers who are just philosophers. who
But-
then become purely academic and kind of lose sight of the world at large.
Yeah. I mean, one easy example to think about, like a philosopher who did more than just philosophy, is Marcus Aurelius.
Mm-hmm. He was a statesman, yeah.
Well, he was the Roman emperor,
Yeah, exactly.
but he was also a philosopher. So, like, well, and there were lots of philosophers who, like in ancient Greece, that actually fulfilled military roles as well. I think was Plato a soldier at one point?
I'm not sure.
Like, was.
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, a lot of it too, like, you're just kind of expected to,
Yeah.
like it was a different time. Yeah, no, but Spengler really talks about how we view history. He talks about how different civilizations view history, the problems with how we catalog history, the problems with how we see it, and yeah, it's a really interesting thing. And talking about how the ancient Greeks, their history was myth, right?
Yeah.
And the Trojan War, to the ancient Greek mind, it didn't matter if it happened 100 years in the past or 1,000 years in the past. That wasn't really the point of it. And we have and the way that we see history is more not through this like classical lens. We see it as this like almost through a natural science kind of way of thinking, this quote unquote rational way of thinking, which has just as many problems, and it's just as many problems as you have with maybe the mythological way of thinking, except maybe we lose meaning in how we see history, as we see it as an order of event, as we see it as cause and effect. And that can be completely incorrect, because if you know anything about anything, you know that things aren't as simple as just cause and effect. There's usually a million causes and a million effects, and sometimes coincidences, and sometimes something, causation doesn't, or correlation doesn't mean causation. But when you're looking back on history, it can be easy to say, well, these things are correlated, this caused it, when that's not really the case. But and also the problem in that how we see history is that since we see it as this thing that is set in stone, since we see it as this through a kind of a quote unquote rational lens, we tend to think of it as true. But the idea of what history is true is a very tenuous one at best. And I was listening to a lot of lectures about Roland Barthes, who's a theorist in like the mid 20th century, speaking about modern mythology and how we still much are mythological creatures, except we don't know our own mythology, yeah, so it's a really interesting, that the mass media sort of gives us our mythology, and you have these kind of ideological divides now, because people are essentially spoon-fed different, maybe contrasting mythologies.
The key example that I think of when you're talking about like our mythology is all of those little stories that were taught about the founding fathers in the U.S. that just aren't true.
Well, yes and no. Like what he's getting at, what like Roland Barthes and maybe some of the postmodernists were getting at, is that advertising, mass media, and consumerism creates our mythology. So Star Wars, CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, they're all loaded with, they're all loaded with just with a sort of mythology, whether they know it or not,
Well, and people take these things as like, well, Star Wars taught me that this is how society works.
Yeah, and my problem with something like Star Wars, my problem with something like Marvel, is that it's a watering down of, because I did see some like arguments, right, that it's like, oh, it's like the pantheon of the gods, but it's a really watering down version. Oh, and DC says Plato was in military service from 409 to 404 BC.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a watering down. None of the superhero cape shit guys are as interesting as any of the Greek gods. And an interesting thing too that Spengler talks about in The Decline of the West is he has this notion of culture and civilization. And so civilization is the death of culture in a sense. To make this make sense, it's like the end point, and the world kind of works in this like almost like rotational phase between, or this like yin and yang, right? Rather than history working as a linear progression, it kind of works as this going between these two, kind of almost like a dialectic between the two of culture and civilization in a sense. And the big example that he uses is the Hellenistic the Hellenistic period of Greece and everything like that was the culture, was the expansion of culture, right? And then Rome that came after was the civilization. It essentially took what the culture was and it cemented it into stone, and in a sense it deadened it. And Rome took their myths from Greece, but the way of thinking went from one of basically the center of the person went from the soul to the intellect in a sense. It was more concrete ways of thinking and things like that. So he also kind of shows that in the West, how the Enlightenment period, post-Enlightenment Industrial Revolution is sort of the beginning of what he calls civilization in the West. And before that, with the different philosophies of Baroque era, things like that, that was culture. The kind of the growth of the European culture, it creates like this cultural foundation from the Renaissance to Enlightenment, this cultural foundation that sort of creates the Western soul, and then it gets sort of cemented, and he shows this in philosophy where philosophers go from more esoteric ways of thinking, more speaking about maybe man as a divine being, to practical philosophy. After Kant, you have more practical philosophies, like with Schopenhauer, And so it goes from this sort of, let's look at, and the example you use is you go from a bird's eye view to the eyes of a frog. So it goes from above to on the ground. And what he's saying is that civilization has to end, and after civilization, after the civilization ends, it's a deadening that can last for hundreds of years, but after it ends, then that's when the new culture, it's like death and rebirth, but it's not quite like the death is this immediate thing. The death is pretty long and drawn out, and the death isn't necessarily something that's bad either. It's just it's just something that's inevitable. He's not seen it as anything that's Renaissance and Enlightenment, human's destruction in the Christian world. Yeah, you can definitely see it that way. I mean, I
would disagree with the Renaissance being the destruction.
Yeah, I wouldn't say Renaissance. Like, I would definitely say Enlightenment, though.
Yeah. Because
Enlightenment is when you had, like, Thomas Jefferson, having his Jefferson Bible. Enlightenment is when you had all the, what did they call themselves? They saw God as, like, the watch clock maker. Deists. You know, you had all the deists. The Enlightenment was like the Reddit comment, like, I'm enlightened by my own thinking, not by any phony God's blessing.
It also led to certain political movements, like the Jacobins in France, which were...
Yeah, exactly. Like, Yeah, the French Revolution, which was a complete catastrophe. Most famous art.
But they were.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'm just reading chat. Most famous art of the Renaissance had the invisible Father God, shown as a white-bearded man, and a human brain. Yeah, I mean that. Well, that is the. Yeah, he is in the human brain, which maybe you could say is a humanist. I would be interested to see what like how people back then interpreted that painting. I know people now are like, oh, God is intellect. But I'm not sure if that's how people at that time would have read that, you know? Because the way that we think is different than the way that we see signs and symbols now is definitely different. Yeah, I think we're still in the era of cultural Christian, even though anti-Christians define themselves through Christian mythos. Yeah, you know, it's funny. It's funny because you think about it like Nietzsche's sort of, you know, his idea of like morality and immorality and amorality, right? Which is the camel, the lion, and the child. And that's a reason why 2001: A Space Odyssey, it's the child at the end. You know, 2001: A Space Odyssey is a Nietzschean science fiction film. I mean, it opens up with "Thus Spake Zarathustra" by Richard Strauss, or Richard Strauss, I guess that's how you say it. So that's why it ends with the child, because the child is the final transformation of the human.
The person
or the
asking
soul.
if Kino's Christian.
Yeah.
The answer is obviously clear. Kino is a Wicca. You can tell just by how he's talking about this right now.
But one of the things is so the camel is a person that sort of just takes to morality, takes everything that the world tells them, right? Takes on the morality, takes on the weight, because the camel's like a beast of burden. You know what I mean? So people just kind of put stuff on you, and you take it, and that is maybe what Nietzsche would have defined as like a moral person. And then the lion is the person who's definitely not going to be doing that, right? The lion is the attacker, is the lone sort of, you know, beast, is the predator, right? So this is maybe what you would consider like immoral in a sense, but it's going against. Essentially, it's everything that goes against the camel. But in the same sense, is like when you think about it, is that when you are a rebel, when you are in that rebel stage, you are still defined by the morality. So it's funny that a lot of atheists are still defined by Christianity. That they're defining themselves by the lack thereof of religion. But they're still defined by that religion, by defining themselves as being rebels against it. But also, there's a bit more nuance there in the way that a lot of them still sort of live according to a lot of Christian ideals. And the way that just our whole paradigm has been so, for the last 2,000 years, you know, especially in the West, has been so just like, just imbued with it. It's hard not to. It's hard not to be influenced by it in ways that maybe you don't even know or understand. Depicting the invisible God, the Father, is really shaky. Especially then, since the way to correctly. It's always been a controversy. It's always been controversial. I mean, because, you know, I don't know. Like, I think that, you know, in art, if you want to depict God, I think that it's not necessarily about saying like, oh, I want to show God for what God really looks like, right? Because if you believe in God, then you would also have to believe that God is beyond any sort of comprehension. It's sort of our rational brains are, we can't really understand it. But maybe in a painting or in a depiction, you can put God into some sort of vessel that allows us to understand it within the context of the painting. If that makes sense. But I know there's plenty of iconoclasts out there, and I know that there's been a lot of talk about what the sort of I don't know. I'm not going to get into it because I can only stay for another like 5-6 minutes. So I'm already just like spewing. I don't know. Theology, yeah. Because I was reading something. Maybe it was Spengler. I don't know. I don't know if it was Spengler. I forget who it was. Talking about the iconoclasts and talking about the iconoclasts and how maybe the iconoclasts were the first atheists in a sense because I don't know. I haven't had that much coffee today. But you can even think of it like even just saying the word, like I know the Jewish people will say G and then hyphen D, but you can even think of using a word for something so vast, right? For something so vast as God, for something so incomprehensible as the God of the universe. Having a word itself is insufficient. I think in itself it's insufficient. But yeah, because what is this? What is the definition? But anyways, I'll get to talking films. This has been Theology Hour. Yeah, in case you guys didn't know, I was a theology major. Yeah, and Johan, there was this argument that I thought was interesting, and that basically the way that the iconoclast thinks, right, is that if you put the image of God, if you put the image of a saint or something into the world, you bring it into something finite, and to them, in their way of thinking, it's seeing something that's unreal, and to them it's proving to themselves that God or the saint or whoever is not real, but is a simulacrum. And
I agree. Marvel fans are worse than iconoclasts.
Yeah, Marvel fans are worse. Yeah, Marvel fans are way worse, and Shang-Chi looks like shit. It
doesn't look that bad. I don't know.
I'd rather rather rewatch like The Grandmaster, or I don't know, like a good movie,
I'd rather rewatch Free Guy, a movie I hate.
I'd just rather rewatch and I hate this too, right? It's like, oh, look at all this representation in Hollywood. It's like, the Asians been making movies for 100 years, and they've been doing a pretty great job at it. They have tons of films, and arguably a lot of the big time Asian cinema is better than a lot of big time Hollywood cinema.
Marvel fans don't know that though.
Yeah, watch Hong Kong action is great. Yeah, all those like Jackie Chan Hong Kong films. I mean, I have the Police Story movies, Drunken Master stuff. Like those are great films. And
Marvel fans are the type of people who see subtitles and assume it's a bad movie.
Exactly. The other thing, though, I would rather argue with a Calvinist than I would a Marvel fan.
And let me see. Oh, Mumkey just DM'd me. We can record Sunday. Okay, I'll go see the movie tomorrow. I'll just stay on and talk to you guys, and not actually go to the cinema. I'll go to the cinema tomorrow.
Yay.
I don't know. I still have time. It's at 3:00. I'm only 5 minutes away from the theater, so maybe I'll hop maybe I'll just get it over with today. It's only an hour and a half long.
If I were you, I would.
Yeah.
It doesn't. It seems like something you should just need to
Actually,
to get. Would be
Holy
done
shit!
with.
I should actually record tomorrow, because I'm getting hit with a Category 3 hurricane on Sunday. Yeah,
joy!
I just learned that today. Yeah, so I'm gonna get hit with a Category 3 hurricane. Filipino cinema is good. I haven't seen much of Filipino cinema. You know what a really good Asian action movie is that I would advise people to watch is The Raid and The Raid 2. Like, you are not gonna beat the choreography of The Raid 2.
My favorite Asian action film is the Last Airbender.
Personally, still Ugandan cinema. Gotta love it.
Yeah, the
Unironic is pretty good.
Mugger Fugger says theology, philosophy are two of my favorite interests. They intersect a lot, surprisingly. Yeah, and they also intersect in Terrence Malick's films. You know, Terrence Malick was a Rhodes Scholar in philosophy. And you know, when you watch his stuff, it's very sort of influenced by, I mean, philosophy and theology just sort of, that his films are all about that. And I think that, I think Terrence Malick is the most American film director to ever live. And I think that his stuff is the most transcendental, like he kind of reminds me almost of like if a Thoreau or someone was like a filmmaker, although he's much more Christian than Thoreau was, but, it's something like that. And I think that, Terrence Malick's best film is his first. That's actually very incorrect, Tom Bombadil. His best film is definitely The Tree of Life, followed by The Thin Red Line, followed by Days of Heaven, followed by Badlands. Although, no, I really like The Hidden Life, so maybe A Hidden Life would be up. Like, Terrence Malick has had only one stinker of a film, and that was Song to Song. And I thought all of his other films were... And then I thought Night of Cups and To the Wonder were good, and I thought all of his other films were great. Although I did take a girl out on a date to see Song to Song when that came out in theaters. So, you know.
Nice.
That was good. But,
Kino, you should take a girl on a date to see, what was it, Wasted Hours.
But that's the key move. You just say, like, by the way, we're gonna watch a movie. At the end, say, what? Did you think it was good?
Yeah, well, I got news for you.
If they say no, then it's over.
Disown the movie immediately.
Right. Oh, yeah, here's something I want to talk about. And thoughts on 70s Godard versus 80s present Godard. I thought that Godard was better in the 60s, and then he sort of lost the plot, and now present Godard, I think, sucks ass. I actually showed Emp Lemon, what was it, The Image Book? And we were watching it, and I'm like, this is literally just a pretentious YouTube poop.
Yeah.
That's Godard's like recent films have just been pretentious YouTube poops, pretentious YTPs. So
Wait,
yeah.
so Godard still makes movies?
Yeah, Godard
Wait, he's
still makes.
alive?
Yeah, he's alive. Yeah, he does Instagram. He goes live on Instagram. He does like Instagram
like
live
Mike.
stories or whatever, and he lives in Switzerland, I think. Yeah, no, but his stuff is just pretentious YouTube poops. I don't even care for a lot of his, like, you know, the films he made during his heyday, like Alphaville. I thought Alphaville had some cool elements, and then the voice over was awful for it. Hey Kino, have you seen the movie Andrei Rublev? I don't even think I need to answer that. I've seen.
Wait, are you streaming?
Yeah, I'm streaming. Yeah.
Oh shit.
I've seen Andrei
Welcome to
Rublev
the
several
podcast.
I've seen Andrei Rublev so many times.
I can't wait to watch that movie.
It's really good, and I went to an exhibit in Moscow that had like some of the props and stuff from Andrei Rublev, and had it was showing like behind the scenes stuff and all sorts of cool stuff. Yeah. Yeah, you didn't know about the Insta part. Yeah, it's pretty funny, actually. Date night watching Wasted Hours with sound off and commentary from writer-director. Yeah.
Clearly.
Thoughts on Sallow? Go watch my video.
Bad movie.
Go
Doesn't like it.
Go watch my video on it. I'm a big Pasolini fan. You know, I gotta say, he was kind of a weird guy, but he also was very based. Oh, hey, Kino, I thought your Moscow Cathedral Kino on your channel is pretty swag. Yeah, so that was St. Sergius of the Trinity Lavra, which is about an hour north of Moscow, and it's essentially kind of like the Vatican, but for Russian Orthodoxy. Yeah, it was great. I really loved that place. What's your fave Tarkovsky? Zirkalo, aka Mir, is probably my favorite Tarkovsky, and it makes sense in that it should also make sense that I really love the Tree of Life, because I think the Tree of Life is very similar just in how it's presented as Mir, where it's not so much a typical story, but it feels like it's a poem on screen, where everything is told very poetically. Everything, like, thinking about the Tree of Life, I just love this image. That it shows the birth, right? In such a creative, just mind-blowing way, where it's like this temple in, like, somewhere in, like, maybe Southeast Asia, and there's the kids there, and they're chosen, you know, one of the children is chosen, and then the child is in this bedroom that's underwater, and it's floating underwater, and a light is coming in through the door, and the kid, you know, and the kid swims up through the door, and then the next image we see is the kid in his crib, you know, or the foot, the famous sort of, you know, like the little foot, and then the kid, you know, walking around. It's such, like, it's just the way that it does it, and the way that, like, you know, that he's contemplating his own mother's mortality with the image of her in the glass coffin in the woods, and it's just, it tells everything in these kind of visual metaphors that you really just get this intense understanding of the main character's worldview and the main character's inner demons and everything that's inside of him, and almost none of it has to be told to you. You know, you're having this narration that's just kind of adding this, like, deeply philosophical just undercurrent to it, with this just absolutely amazing classical, you know, soundtrack, and the way that it just, he really, I think he uses cinematic language to in just the most perfect kind of way. That's why The Tree of Life is my favorite movie just of all time. Yeah, my favorite Kubrick is Barry Lyndon.
Base.
Yeah. Yeah.
Obviously, his best film, in my opinion, as well.
What's your take on the James Rolfe every internet video that he makes is a film mindset? Is it delusional or is it based? And also, Tom Bombadil, I have a Blue Velvet video written, so expect a Blue Velvet video in the next couple months. I've seen Blue Velvet. The funny story about Blue Velvet, it was, so what got me into cinema was David Lynch, and I saw Eraserhead when I was 12, and then my dad's a surgeon, and when he was in med school, his one of his buddies was obsessed with Blue Velvet. He had a VHS, or it was a VHS or Betamax or something of Blue Velvet. Every Saturday they would drink beer and watch Blue Velvet. So so I ended up watching Blue Velvet because of my dad. He showed it to me, and he had the entire film memorized. I remember I was just felt awkward during some of the scenes, but, you know, now, gosh, I turn on Blue Velvet. That's one of my comfort films. I'm like, say, son, what's your favorite beer? Heineken? Heineken? Fuck that shit. Pabst Blue Ribbon. Oh, there's so many great lines in there, too. Don't be a good neighbor to her. I'm gonna send you a love letter. Straight from my heart, fucker. You know what that is? It's a fucking bullet. You get a love letter from me and you're fucked forever.
So you are your dad now.
Yeah. Yeah, I just have the entire I have that entire movie memorized. Yeah.
You have ascended to Father Kino.
Yeah. I am
Yeah,
in, I am in an
said
RV
this about
for sale.
Aquino a bit ago, but
Oh Lord.
Yeah. Oh, so I don't. Okay, so I'm gonna have to leave in like a minute, or else I'm gonna miss the beginning of Candyman. But I don't believe that YouTube videos are art, or most of them are art. I don't. Also, Lynch is better than Buñuel in my opinion, but I don't believe that most YouTube videos are art because a lot of them are derivative. You know, even if you make something that's like a really good video, like I try to make videos that I think are really good, and I have a lot of friends who make, I think, really great videos. But I still don't think it's art because you're making stuff that's derivative. A lot of people are analyzing something, they're critiquing something, they're doing something that's based on something else that someone has made. It's not necessarily an expression of oneself, you know. Even like the Angry Video Game Nerd, he is critiquing a video game, he's critiquing a piece of art, but I don't think that criticism, even though you can put artistic elements into it, but considering that it works as that its main purpose is criticism and with entertainment also mixed in, I just don't think it's art because it's not this like, it's not a short film, it's not a film, it's not something that's insular that exists by itself in that sense. It's something that is leeching off of something else. And I mean, I admit that from my own videos. I see them as educational. I see them as entertaining. I don't necessarily see them as art. I see them as art appreciation. I'm not like, I have my own art that I make. I write. I write scripts. I write scripts.
I would say.
No,
I think the best example of art on YouTube is Internet Historian's mini documentary on Stede Bonnet.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But so the thing is that I see my videos as art appreciation, but I don't necessarily see them as art, and I think that most videos I don't think fall into that art category. They're not. I think most videos aren't trying to be art, you know, which then, as I see it, makes it so that they're not art because they're not trying to be art. Yeah, I do believe that there has to be intention, you know, that you are creating a piece of art. That was a controversy, right, when we had all these African tribal face masks and stuff, and we're putting them in art museums when the African tribal people saw them as utilitarian tools, right, for their rituals. They didn't see them as art. So
you're saying Watch Mojo's top 10 anime openings isn't art?
Yeah.
No.
That
That also means you're saying that oh, sorry.
I was just saying I prefer Watch Mojo's top 10 hottest anime MILFs.
There we go.
Misato.
That's true. That is art. You have to make
And with Kino's breakdown, he has completely destroyed every single theory Doug Walker has ever had about filmmaking. I've seen Kick-Ass, yeah, I know how it goes.
Can we put Clay Bull's yeah, and oh, absolutely, he perfectly exhibits evil as being the human temptation to follow our desires without discipline. And that is actually a big thing in Sallow, and that was an idea that Pasolini had called the anarchy of evil. And the anarchy of evil is this idea, right? So when you're thinking about creating more and more power, right? Or anarchy of power, that's what he meant, not anarchy of evil, anarchy of power. When you are at the top of your power, so if you're the most powerful person in the world, then the laws of humans does not bind you to anything, right? Because if you can be more powerful than the law. Of course, we all know this to be true. But then within yourself, if you see yourself as a deity, if you see yourself as above God, if you just believe that God doesn't exist, if you just believe that God doesn't exist and you believe that you are not held to the same maybe divine laws, right? And you don't believe in the divine laws, right? And you are above the human laws, then I would say, then you become then you are in the perfect position to let all of your most base and evil desires thrive. And this is where the anarchy of power comes into play, which Sallow is, an expression of.
Kino, I like what you're saying, but did you forget about Candyman?
Yeah, it's gonna start in 20 minutes. I'm gonna finish.
Oh, I thought you had to really go.
No, it's gonna start in about 20 minutes. But I'm.
And then there's also all the trailers and crap.
Well, no, with the trailers, it's gonna start in 20 minutes. So I'm gonna just.
Oh.
I'm just gonna leave it on. But I'm right next to the theater, so I'm just gonna leave
Okay.
it. I'm gonna end this thought and then end the stream. But so, and considering that Pasolini was very influenced by Nietzsche, how Nietzsche saw, or in Klosowski, and how in between the two there was this idea of how the human is, where humans are just a mass of impulses that sort of filter through a phantasm. The phantasm is maybe the idea of the soul. It's sort of everything that is. It's like the filter for all of our impulses that are coming to pass, and how there's no way that you can perfectly express your own phantasm, but you can approximate it. And so, like, Klosowski thought that Nietzsche's expression, Nietzsche's simulacrum was Amor Fati, the eternal recurrence. And so in Sallow, they give in. One of their big things, and it's said in there, that to give in to their impulses. Now, if you don't know much about Nietzsche and Klosowski, that might actually be lost on you, that it's not just as simple as, oh, we're just going to do what we want. It's a lot more complex than that. And if they're to give into their impulses, right, because they have this high amount of power, they see themselves as the children. They see themselves as creating a new morality, right? That's part of what Sallow is. But they're creating an inverse reality. And this inverse reality, in a sense, is their simulacrum. And their simulacrum, their expression of their phantasm, is torture and death and desecration and shit. That is what you see on screen is what is inside the libertines. And they are creating a world around them that is just an image of themselves. In the same way that God created man in his image, the libertines are creating their world and theirs. That is also a major factor for Sallow. Dovahati's unbiased Rome is art. Now the Watch Mojo top 10 anime betrayals. Oh yeah, thanks for the $2, Captain Mercury, and thank you for the $7, Fazal. I'll have to get you on the KinoCast again soon. We got to redo that. Now the Watch Mojo top 10 anime betrayals video is art, and I cannot and will not be told otherwise. Oh, and DM me after Candyman. Tell me how it is. And yes, I will DM you after Candyman. I will tell you how it is. And with that, I have got to go. I'll see you guys all later. Thank you all for tuning in.
Speed, and I'm gonna have to go read a lot more philosophy now.
Not.